You either have a photographic memory or you've got a lot of notes, or maybe both, I don't know. But the seller's price is like the Loch Ness monster. It may or may not exist, but if you start trying to hunt it, you're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of energy.
All right, Justin, you're one of the leading authorities on auctioneering and the auction process in our industry. You're a multiple-time winner of the Australasian Auctioneering Championships, which is not an easy thing to win, and the current holder of Queensland's auction record at just under 25 million. And you're the director of Apollo Auctions, which spans 30 plus people across Australia and New Zealand, and you've called over 7,000 auctions last year. So thanks for coming on Real Agent.
My pleasure.
Mate, let's tuck straight in here. So if an agent listening to this is wanting to do more auctions, and maybe they'll feel that way after they've listened to this conversation, they either have to convert stock they already have into auctions, I suppose, or win new business under the banner of an auction, which obviously invokes winning a listing presentation. So I guess let's go into a hypothetical living room here within a listing presentation. And I guess something that you've spoken about at AREC and a theme that's consistent throughout your training is kind of disarming the landmines that might lose you the business and going after those directly and nice and early. Obviously, one of the big ones there is price. And you've spoken about a very elegant and, again, a sort of tactfully direct way of handling the topic of price. And again, sort of you're severing maybe a false understanding that the owners might have in their head around sort of pricing and which agent they might choose just because an agent tells them the highest price. It doesn't mean they believe in it the most. I guess if over this way, there's a sort of room full of agents and they've all kind of put up their hand and said, Justin, you know, I've lost 5 out of 10 of my latest listing presentations, and it was mostly off the back of mishandling the subject of price. I guess what would be your thoughts here, and what's the sort of masterclass on handling price early in the listing presentation?
Firstly, it's overarchingly, I don't think as an industry we train enough. We don't practice when the bullets aren't flying. So if you're constantly losing anything, be it listing presentations, be it that you're struggling to hold inquiry, you're struggling to hold bidders prior to an auction, you can't handle an offer when it comes in, practice your dialogue in your teams, inside your office when it's not live and real. We say to our auctioneers that the point of improvement for an auctioneer really is 300 auctions a year. So you do 300 auctions a year, you'll improve significantly as an auctioneer. Until you get paid to call 300 auctions a year, you've got to call 300 unpaid ones. That's down the park, in the shower, in a boardroom, in an office, whatever it might be, because that's the point of improvement. So coming back to this context is that if there's a problem that you're constantly having a listing presentation, they get to price and I fumble my way through and someone else promises high and gets it, like experiment and try dialogue around it. But I think it's pulling it back to what our key jobs are as an agent or a representative of the owner. So as soon as an agent gets employed on behalf of an owner, they're that owner's ambassador to the market. So every bit of dialogue the market has, every bit of inquiry, every bit of curiosity the market has goes through the agent. So they're effectively an ambassador for that seller at that particular point in time. So what they should be based upon and what they should be choosing an agent based upon is their skills around an ability to market. So handle inquiry or cast a net out to get people interested. And then as soon as you have someone interested, to negotiate with that person. Now, we think of negotiation being that it's in a closed room, putting a deal together, but negotiation starts from the moment that you handle an inquiry. So how do you position an owner? What's the dialogue around why is the owner selling it? All those kinds of bits and pieces. So talking about marketing and negotiation being your primary skill set and not valuing. Like valuing is a whole other occupation that people go to uni to do. Like it's not part of your job. So don't choose your ambassador to the market who's got to try and find people and work with them based upon their skill to value a property. It's just not part of their role or part of their skill set. So we can talk about recent sales and the context they have in terms of how we're going to give them the buyers. But for us to sit here and try and forecast what your property is going to sell for is going to be very, very difficult. So let's avoid it.
And that's the second big landmine, isn't it? Is commission. And you're saying, look, like you just said, I'm not a valuer, I'm a marketer and a negotiator. And I think what's interesting, and again, this is something that you've spoken about in the past, is during a listing presentation, almost in doing the listing presentation, you are demonstrating your ability as a marketer and your acumen as a marketer because you're talking through various elements of running a campaign. But potentially what they don't have as much of a snapshot of is your ability to negotiate, or the one instance that they do is you negotiating on your own fee, and it's probably the only time they don't actually want you to be successful as their agent. Yep. So something that you've spoken about, and I think potentially you might encourage your listeners to do a little bit more of, is sort of in your listing presentation, like you just said, the negotiation starts from the first inquiry. So why not show them, like do a role play with the seller as to how you're going to handle that? And the sort of double benefit of that, I suppose, is you're sort of demonstrating your ability as a negotiator and creating more surface area where they can see that and differentiate yourself. But then you're also setting landmines for the next guy or girl that comes in, because then the owner's going to go, well, how are you going to handle the inquiry? And then all of a sudden they're on the back foot and might not have the best response ready.
Yes, I just don't think you just don't want price hanging over your head. Like, it's not like this big anvil that could drop at any moment and chop your head off basically during a listing presentation. Get out in front of it quickly. Like, let people know that your fee is not a random number you've come up with through a random number generator. Your fee is your fee based upon the experience that you have, your skill set that you have. We face the same battle as auctioneers. Our pricing as an auctioneer is top of market. That means we need to be better than our competitors, or else if we're the same as our competitors, agents would be morons not to use our competitors. So we need to position ourselves at a higher fee, but we need to position ourselves at a higher skill level too. It's the same with agents. Is if your fee is your fee, then you need to own that and you need to stand behind it and say, no, there's a reason that we charge this. It's not a guess. It's what I am. And I get there's people that do it for less, but as soon as someone does the same job for less, they're compensating you for the fact they're not as good. So if you really want to get the best price, do you want to get the best price but save some money, or do you want to get the best price? Because you can't kind of have both. We need to pick which path we're going to walk down.
Something that you mentioned sort of in some of those previous answers is that you don't think agents in the industry train quite enough. And it sort of reminds me of, I was listening to your podcast when you were being interviewed by Thomas McGlynn from Bresic Whitney. And it sort of reminds me of sort of in the early stages of your sort of auctioneering competition days, you were sort of trying to crack the AREC finals and couldn't for 3 consecutive years. And that sort of culminated in 2012. And you just sort of, I think you put in a lot of effort in the build up to that one. You probably had higher expectations for yourself, but again, fell short. And sort of you put the date on a bit of paper, wrote underneath it, don't forget, above the bedroom door, and walk past it for a year. And the amount of work you did over the subsequent 12 months came back the following year and won the finals. So I guess when I hear something like that, it's sort of, what would be your advice to, as agents, there's a repeated set of things they know they're going to encounter. They know they need to have a very, very strong listing presentation. They need to have a prospecting skill set. They need to have a negotiation skill set. But like you said, if you don't have the opportunities to do those in paid environments, do them in unpaid environments until you're skilled enough to win business and do them in paid environments. What would your advice be on this topic of preparation and doing the work to go pro?
Yeah, well, nothing happens without work. So the work is the first step. Confidence, rewards, acknowledgement, selection is the back end of the work. And if you don't do the work, you're not entitled to any of those things that come there. You know, that's a long time ago now. It's a decade ago that happened. But I think for me, one of the things that's always driven me is I've had an ability to use things that hurt me to drive me. Maybe there's a psychologist that could unpack that and get real deep with that. But I've always found that I can find motivation in things pretty quickly. I'm not really a wallower. Funny, it's something that just happened. I prior to the Christmas break, I was named in a training squad or selection squad for the Australian touch football team for the World Cup. We had a selection camp in January, got the phone call on Sunday saying I didn't get picked. Like, there's two ways you can respond to that. You can respond and kick the cat and say, oh, that's rubbish and I should have been picked, or, oh, it's not for me, I tried my best, and off we go. Or you can say, okay, what stopped me from being picked, and how do I then bridge the gap between where I am now and where I want to be? And whatever you put that into practice with, be it professional, personal, in a real estate context, in winning more listings or selling more of your listings, or in a sporting context, like, the work comes before everything. Like, there's nothing that can happen without work. And for us, we try and focus as much as we can on actions versus outcomes. So what are the actions you can control without outcomes at the end? Because the outcomes is something you can't control. The one thing that gave me solace to that phone call that I got on Sunday was that between the point of kind of being named and then, I'd done a lot of work. Like, I'd run basically every day. I'd done speed work, agility work. I was in really good shape. I'd looked after my body. I'd eaten well. Like, I'd done everything I could. So I couldn't be mad at selection to say, well, I could have done this or I could have done that. So if you do the work, it actually makes it easier to accept things. It's just about putting that work in and having a plan. But I can only control what I can control. So for agents, it's the same thing. Control what you can control, and the outcomes will be the outcomes.
And so I guess to double click on that, are we effectively sort of talking about simulating listing presentations, simulating prospecting scenarios? Is that what you're sort of saying there?
Absolutely right. Yep. So if your listing presentation percentage is 5 out of 10, that's 5 times out of 10 that you've lost the opportunity to earn commission that you should have done. So you need to get in and practice until that's a 9 out of 10. You can't get every single one of them. Occasionally someone might be better than you on that day, or maybe the seller's decision-making is different to what you're offering. But you can put yourself in a position where you can win the vast majority. So it's doing more listing presentations, or it's prospecting harder, or it's having a better balance in your life, making better decisions, that you go to bed earlier so you wake up earlier so then you're more bright in the mornings. Like it's whatever the kind of weak point is, that's where you want to try and work on. But in this context, it's more training. The Broncos don't turn up and just play games. They train and they play games.
So what would you say to someone that might be listening to this and they're half cringing or half eye rolling going, mate, it's not that serious. We're real estate agents. You know, I'm writing 500K GCI.
Yeah.
It's going good enough. So what would you say to that person listening?
Well, it's really serious. Like, and I take auctioneering really seriously because it's my family's financial future. Like nothing's more serious than that other than health. So in terms of seriousness of stuff in my life, it doesn't get more serious than what I do. If someone rings me and says, oh, look, we decided to go with another auctioneer on that particular day, that's financial money that would have come to me and my family that's gone elsewhere. Like, I don't think you can get much more serious than that. And every practitioner that's at the top of their tree in anything treats it seriously.
Doing the work is one thing, but then the quality of your work and your repetitions is another thing entirely. So I think every agent listening to this would be aware of an agent that's just an absolute phone jockey, or they're knocking on a ton of doors and they're just not creating opportunity because what they're doing is not of high enough quality and caliber. Again, another story from your past, I think it was the 2009 REIQ novice auctioneering competition, and sort of you did your call on stage and you're actually pretty happy with it. And Jason Andrew was sort of your mentor at that point in time, and he was watching, came off stage and said, Jason, how'd I do? And he was like, mate, so you've got 6 people that have gone, I've got you in 5th, which was a bit of a gut punch. Again, you talk about how some auctioneers do the same call 100 times because they don't have someone in that crowd with a critical auction eye going, your trial closed too early there. And I guess making that relevant to real estate agents. I don't know, film your listing presentation, do a sort of simulated listing presentation, record it, get someone who's writing more money than you to look at it. I guess, how important would you feel is this element of having someone that's beyond where you are actually look at your work and say you need to fine tune? Because ultimately that's how progress is made.
You've done your research. I'm almost a little bit scared now. We're getting into dangerous territory.
So, mate, your social security number is...
Yeah. I think with anything that you want to have someone who's achieved what you want to achieve, or who's at a higher position than you, have a critical eye on anything that you do. So from agents, like, I think that what you said there is a really practical example, that film your listing presentation. Like, it's no good just to walk in a listing presentation, get no feedback, because sellers don't really give you feedback after. Like, you either got it, in which case it'll reinforce everything you did was right, or you won't get it, and they won't probably tell you why. They'll say something like, oh, well, the fee was this, and it actually wasn't the fee. It was that you didn't build enough rapport, or they didn't think you were the best problem solver. So having someone at a level of experience that can look at it and tell you your shortcomings is important. There's a saying, and there's a book, that ego is the enemy. I think that self-protection of ego is the enemy. So when we put barriers up to protect ourselves, that's when we're really in trouble, because those barriers mean that we'll never improve. You need to be told what you're doing wrong to improve. And if you're not, you can't. Circling
back to auctions. So the way you sort of describe an auction in a listing presentation is you try to not use the word, because ultimately what is it made up of? And it's a no price marketing strategy with a deadline attached to it. And sort of on the no price marketing strategy, what I've learned from you is sort of, the consumer psychology, you skip, can I afford it? Can I negotiate it? Is it good value? And you go straight to, do I want it? Which obviously lends itself to emotional attachment first, then you justify it with logic. Very quick story from the States. There was a Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listings in the US. He has this story on this topic, which is basically had a buyer wanted to buy something in the Hamptons, had a $20 million budget. And he has 3 daughters and he wanted something with ocean views or on the ocean, but $20 million doesn't buy you that. So he showed him three places in a row which were in the budget, but knew wouldn't really suit. Then said, mate, we're already out here. I've got a 4th one. It's more than what you want to pay, but let's go take a look at it. We're here. Why not? Takes him through. It's $42 million. All the bedrooms have ocean views. It's on the ocean. And the guy goes, you bastard, and pays $42 million. And it's sort of, you've seen this play out many times before. If you have an emotional attachment with something, you can probably find the money.
Within reason. Within budget. But yeah, look, I think when we think about things logically, it's much easier to say no. When we think about things emotionally, it's much more difficult. So, a great example is you go into an expensive clothing store, they don't have a price tag on it. There's a bit of a line at the front. So you're like, oh, I'll just try it on. I'll just see what it feels. And then of course it feels great because it's great quality material, it fits you well. You do the little twirl in the mirror where, you know, the good bits look great and the not so good bits, they look okay as well. And you go, oh, that's actually really nice. I could see myself wearing that to the races or wherever you might go. And then you take it to the counter and you say, what's this? And they say, oh, it's X. And you go, whoa. Oh, gee, but I really look good in it and I could picture myself wearing it. And then you talk yourself into it. Whereas if you just picked it up, turned it over, looked at the price, you disengage from it straight away. So it's just making emotion the primary decision-making tool rather than logic. Logic will still come into it, but logic will come secondary. So emotion first, engage people, and then logic secondary rather than the opposite, which is logic first, emotion second. That story you tell there about Ryan Serhant, that was Agent's playbook for 20 years. They put buyers in cars, they'd show them all the ones that weren't that great, and then of course they'd do the big knockout punch for the one that they did above. Like that's good salesmanship, because you do kind of remind people that if you're thinking about this logically and that's your budget, that's what you can have. But if you think about it emotionally and you think about what you want, this is what you can have. And it gets people thinking emotionally again rather than logically.
So I'm going to go a little bit off track here, but basically...
I was talking about Australian touch football teams 5 minutes ago, so we're there's no track we're on currently, so we're way off.
Fair play. So basically in that scenario, a lot of people have heard that Ryan Serhant story and they actually go, mate, typical real estate agents, immoral, doing the wrong thing. At the end of the day, the guy had capacity to buy the house and the house actually solved his problem. And I guess it probably gets to the heart of maybe what a good agent does, which is they don't take orders. They read the subtext of what the person actually wants. And Ryan knew that guy, if he's buying a $20 million holiday house, he can afford a $42 million holiday house, or at least he knew that and just went, mate, I'm not going to entertain your order. I'm actually just going to give you what you want, and then you can decide. I'll show you what you told me you want and what is actually going to solve your problem. And again, I think that's another really important skill of agents, that sometimes they just qualify and they just go, yep, and I'll show you exactly what you want, versus actually thinking about what they're not saying and sort of actually fulfilling that sort of unsaid need as well.
Yeah, look, financial responsibility is the responsibility of the buyer. If the buyer didn't have the capacity to buy it, they wouldn't, or their broker would tell them that they can't. Their broker or their mortgage broker or their bank it's their job to tell them they can't buy things. As agents, it's our job to show them what they can buy. That's a big difference between those two. So, yeah, I don't. There's no colouring that whatsoever. I think it's our job is to try and do the best we can for our owner, and that's to bring as many buyers through as possible. The buyers will self-select and they'll decide if they can afford it or not. But ultimately, our job is to kind of create two things, which we talk about, emotion and competition. Both of those are exactly what they're doing there. They're trying to create emotion. If they can get a second person, that's competition. So, no second thoughts about that whatsoever.
The second component of the auction strategy is the deadline, and I guess the deadline can be intimidating for some agents and certainly for some owners as well. I guess how you describe it, and I think what relieves a lot of anxiety and tension around that fact is that, well, yes, the day is part of a 3-stage process where you've got prior, on the day, and post.
Yeah, it's thinking like auctions are, now this word gets abandoned around way too much where they say auctions are process. For me, all the process is it's a series of repeatable actions to lead to a repeatable outcome. That's what a process is. So it's that thinking that an auction is a process and not an event. We say the word auction and people automatically think of the day. Oh, that's the day, and there'll be lots of people there, and there'll be pressure, and there'll be cameras, and Shelley Craft will be there, and it's all that. It's all focused on the day. Whereas the day of an auction campaign, if you're running a 3-week auction campaign, the day is 5% of the whole campaign. It's a minuscule amount. So it's that thinking that auction is a process and not a day. The deadline, we think, plays a really valuable role because it compresses. So deadlines compress activity, and compressing activity creates competition. That's why the deadline's in place.
Something else that you've spoken about is the seller decision cycle. Now, this obviously exists independent of the auction process, but effectively what I've learned from you is sort of most owners in any given area sort of sit in the acknowledgement section, which is they probably would consider a sale for the right price if it was all made easy, attractive, and painless for them. So I think a lot more transactions would happen if agents were a bit more proactive in presenting attractive options to owners. But how you sort of leverage that through the auction process is this VIP viewings that you talk about. So you invite a carefully sort of thought about set of groups to the VIP viewing. You do it early, and then you circle back later in the campaign once you've got the leftover bidders to sort of present them attractive options. What does this whole sort of process sort of look and feel like for the people that aren't familiar?
Yeah, so contextually, it's the thought process that a listing equals a listing. So I have a listing, therefore I want to try and create another one rather than listings equal sales. So the idea of VIP viewing is that there's three kind of key groups that you get along. That's buyers you're working with, that's past appraisals, and that's neighbours. And each of those plays a valuable role in their own way of kind of being part of that journey, I suppose. So I think what's happened a lot around property marketing is we've really focused on speed and quantity over quality. So we want to get the fact we've listed a property out to as many people as we can, as fast as we can. But in doing that, we actually ignore the key people we need to tell directly with the right messaging to actually engage them further. And all those people there at some point will create more listings for us in some way, shape or form.
Or GCI if you sell it off market.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So that's the thought process that we have to have. You know, there's the estimated group of people who would not sell no matter what is roughly between 6 and 7%. So they're the people that will not move for whatever reason. Now that's really two groups of people. That's usually elderly people that just it's not worth the hassle, or people that are in their absolutely aspirational home that don't want to move at all. That's a really rare or small subset of the population. Most people are aspiring to be in a bigger house, better house, closer to schools, better view, bigger pool, double garage instead of a single garage, you know, whatever, bigger block of land, whatever it might be, but it's not pressing enough to get them to move. If you think about it through that lens, like you mentioned, then it's about solving problems. If you can solve the problem for them, they come to the market. But we kind of think, okay, well, let's sit and wait till they get to real estate mode. But then the problem they get to real estate mode is that they're in contact with everyone. It's really congested space. So we try and play in the space that isn't as congested, get to them before they realize that they're kind of selling, solve a problem for them. And then we're the problem solver. So then we're in the right bracket to try and get something done.
And if you sort of, again, they came through your VIP viewing, let's just say they're a neighbour.
Yep.
And then you circle back and saying, I've got leftover registered bidders, you know, would you entertain the idea of them coming through your place? And they say, yeah, sure, almost half out of curiosity. And then you produce an offer. That offer might spark the thought process of, well, do we actually want to live here? Would we consider cashing in and moving? So you're actually bringing forward a listing on the market through sort of, you know, being proactive in that way.
That's the dialogue I'd use for past appraisals and potential vendors.
Right.
Neighbours I'd treat differently. Neighbours, my avenue and my angle around neighbours is that the general curiosity is not so much what it sells for. There's certainly a curiosity there, but the stronger curiosity is who buys it. So that's the avenue that I'm working down, and talking to the neighbours. And instead of ringing the neighbours and saying, oh yeah, you know, we just list the one up the street, walk up the street, come and check it out. We say, hey, can you come up the street? Can you tell us what's fantastic about living in Norman Park? So we can then pass that on and we can find the right buyer for this environment. That makes it feel like we care about more than the transaction. We care about the community, which most really good agents do. They actually care about the communities they operate in. So we work through that avenue rather than the comparison angle. And then we call them back and we give the information. Hey, Carter, I just wanted to let you know we did sell that one at number 26. Sold sticker hasn't gone up yet. It's about to go up, but it is a young family from Canberra that's bought it. They got 2 young children that are going to school locally. If you see them, love you to say g'day. Like, that's caring beyond the transaction, because fairly or unfairly, everyone in the general public believes that the moment an agent stops caring is when it goes unconditional. So if we can care beyond that point or demonstrate we care beyond that point, it separates us away from competitors.
Another really important sort of part of running a successful auction from a mindset perspective is this sort of having a trusty sale mindset with every auction, or just almost sort of pretending in your own head that there's not going to be a reserve.
Yeah.
This happens a lot. Even if you manage to list an auction campaign, if the owners are, they're telling you they want this price and they have such conviction about it, and you sort of go with them as the agent, you get swept up in their conviction, then you go, all right, well, your anchor sale is too high and your back end price is too high and you get no inspections, no inquiry. You're sort of caught in this wheel of demotivation as you talk about. Whereas if you just pretended it had no reserve from the beginning, you'd have a certain energy in handling inquiries. You would have set the sort of, your anchor sale would be set correctly, your back end price would be set correctly. So it's kind of ironic, isn't it? Even if you're genuinely wanting to do the best thing by those owners and get them the most amount of money or too much money as they're sort of wanting, if you just were a process demon, you'd actually probably end up there anyway.
You either have a photographic memory or you've got a lot of notes, or maybe both, I don't know. But yeah, look, we say this, I say this a lot, that the seller's price is like the Loch Ness monster. It may or may not exist, but if you start trying to hunt it, you're going to waste a lot of time, a lot of energy. Where sellers say that we will accept X or Y, it bears little resemblance to where it eventually sells, positively and negatively. So let's not worry about it. Our job is not to hunt seller's price. Our job is to hunt best prices. And sometimes those overlap. Sometimes they don't overlap. I was having a conversation with an agent this morning, got a big auction coming up down the Gold Coast tomorrow where, they've done a really good campaign. They've got a few bidders. The interest is likely to probably get in the mid fives, around the 5 million, maybe a little bit more with a bit of pressure. Sellers, for whatever reason, still want in the sevens. It's unlikely to transact, but that agent's done their job. I know they may not get paid, but they've done their job, which is we've hunted, we've created competition, we've found the best price. Our job is to get the best price and present it to an owner. Seller's job, say yes or no. So we talk about two things, and no doubt it's in your copious amounts of notes that's probably coming up, but there's two jobs we have. One is to give information. The second one is to give decisions to make. Let's give information, understand the market, and then let's give them a choice to make. And beyond that, it's up to them.
And in order to do that, one of the most important facets of the auction process, you've actually said it's one of the three most important things to get right, is how you handle inquiry when it comes in the door. So your anchor sales, your anchor low and anchor high, reiterating motivation, generating inspections from it. What is the sort of Justin Nickerson masterclass on handling an inquiry when it comes in the door? The next generation of real estate video is here. ShopFlow have created technology in-house that automatically edits high quality and affordable property videos, which means you can get a coming soon, just listed and a just sold video with enough room for a spend budget that guarantees thousands in your farm area will actually see these videos, all vendor paid for less than the price of a typical standalone property video. To learn more, visit www.shopflow.io. Again, that's shopflow.io. Sellerleadsforagents.com.au. Quite simply, if you would pay for more potential seller leads in your farm area to get you in more doors and increase your GCI, head to www.sellerleadsforagents.com.au and sign up. Again, that's sellerleadsforagents.com.au and sign up. A special thanks to the team at Bell Bulimba and Tony O'Doherty, our second episode, for lending us our set for today's episode of Real Agent. Much appreciated. And if you haven't seen the second episode, maybe check it out after this one.
Well, it's a little bit legislative specific. I know your viewers or your listeners go worldwide, so I'd hate to narrow down just
Milky
one.
Way galaxy, don't undersell
Yeah,
us.
galaxy-wide, yeah.
We got
I'm not up
Pluto
on
listeners.
the Mars auction legislation, so I probably can't answer that, but it's very legislative dependent. In essence, the overarching message is give the buyers something. Don't just avoid it. Don't just say, oh, look, Carter, due to the section 14.6 of the PMD Act 2014, I can't give you a price guide in Queensland. Like, that doesn't help them. Try and help them wherever you can within legislation. But avoid the old archaic dialogue, which was basically, Carter, what's your budget? X, come to the auction. Carter, what's your budget? Y, come to the auction. Like, we've gone past that. Like, we did that when I started in real estate back in my day, many years ago. We had that dialogue. We're way past that now, because the biggest change has been that the buyers are more aware of sales and information than they were before. So when I first started in real estate, the internet was a thing. I know you probably say it probably wasn't, but the internet was a thing. But buyers probably weren't as savvy about going to REA and getting data around sold properties. They still relied a lot on the agent to give them the information. These days, the buyers know as much as agents do, without question. Because if they're looking to buy, for example, a 5-bedroom house in Norman Park, their research is hyper-focused on just 5-bedroom houses in Norman Park. So they're aware of every sale that's transpired in the last 2 years, everything that's been on the market, everything that's come on the market and gone, like in that narrow focus. Whereas an agent, if they carry, 15 or 20 listings, their knowledge has to be across a variety of suburbs. So the buyers probably know more than you. So don't try and trick them. Don't try and bait them. Just give them what information you legally can provide to them, but make sure you reiterate the fact that the reason why it's going to auction is because the seller needs to sell it. The seller can't be more motivated than saying, you know what, on the 26th of March, we're selling a house. There's no more, you can't get more motivated than that. So let's just rely on that as best we can.
And sort of to that point, it's almost like you said, they have access to all the comps and all the recent sales. So do they, roughly speaking, know where the price is going to land when they inquire? Unless they're coming from interstate, they honestly probably do have a rough expectation of where it's going to land. So what's the subtext of what they're really asking? Is this house actually for sale? Are these real actual sellers? Are they going to meet the market? And I guess as an agent, that's the question you have to answer, not so much the actual price itself.
Absolutely, yeah. They're trying to find out why is the seller selling it and how motivated they are. That's the biggest essence behind what they're trying to find out. It'll be framed up in different ways, but that's the overarching message behind it.
And we'll double click on that once more because you talk about, again, this brilliant idea. I think it's amazing. Sort of your photos and the body of your copy should appeal to the sort of target market that house suits. But then headline and lead line, you're appealing to sort of value-based buyers in there by reiterating motivation and text.
Spot on. Yep, exactly right. There's no point writing your ad and everything on the ad's all about the buyer that's going to fall in love with it. Parts of your ad have to be targeted at people who want value. And then that creates competition. Because it's just, I think on that, it's a really important point. I think just to think about, Carter, is that every buyer is going to walk into a home. They never walk into a home saying, oh, we're going to make these sellers so happy today. Like they don't. They walk in thinking, how cheap can we buy this if it suits us? So lean into that. Like you want value, great. There's value here. Let's try and work on that. Because then what will shift them off that is emotional connection, competition.
On that point, because I find that interesting, in the higher end markets, because you do a lot of very high end auctions, especially in the Gold Coast, do you think that psychology is actually a bit different? I've probably personally experienced this a fair bit as well, where with a high end buyer, it's actually sort of less value oriented and it's more about sourcing. That's their primary pain point. If I can find the right home, price is my secondary consideration. So it's almost a bit different. Have you seen that sort of play out in the auctions as well? And have you ever appealed to that sort of psychology as an auctioneer?
I think the biggest change we see with high-end auctions versus normal auctions, like the buyer psychology is pretty much the same. It doesn't actually shift much in price points. What shifts a lot is we find, so we sold a property last week for just over 10 million.
Was that Chugan?
It was Chugan. Yeah. One of the buyers there at Chugan had recently sold a company for a lot of money, like a lot of money. They could have bought this property 40 times over if they wanted to, but they just didn't want it enough. Whereas that's a really big difference, a subtle difference, but it's a really big difference to most of the auctions we do. The buyers stop because they can't afford it. There's a big difference between those two things. So I think that's the biggest change between the two, is that it has to appeal enough to the high-end buyer, because if it doesn't appeal enough, they'll just go, that's okay, let it go, like whatever. Whereas most people, they're sort of are striving and going up, so they kind of get limited on financial capability.
Facts, not opinions. That's another sort of big philosophy when running your auction campaigns.
I have a lot of philosophies, Carter. Yes, that's definitely one of them.
That is one of them. So again, going back to the listing table, this is something that you preface at the listing table with the sellers, that you're going to be direct with them and you get their buy-in. So that way you can't be the villain later on. And then you sort of go on to talk about how written offers are facts. Everything else is an opinion. And so therefore you're sort of 2 out of 3. The second of the 3 most important skills when running an auction is your ability to get written offers. Your Apollo auctions data shows with 3 written offers, you're just about a statistical certainty to sell. It's 97% or something like that. So you say for inexperienced agents, get to 3 written offers sort of before your auction date. What's the masterclass here on sort of that dialogue and procuring written offers? Yeah,
we say that to every agent, is get 3 written offers on an auction, or a private treaty for that matter. Like whatever listing you have, if you get 3 written offers, you're in a great spot, because you probably have some buyers that are engaged and you probably have a seller that understands the market, which is the two goals. I think at the listing table, the first thing is that where relationships break down is when there's a gap between expectation and delivery. So, and that's in any course of life, is a relationship will break down when there's an expectation on something and then the delivery doesn't match the expectation. So a listing presentation really is about aligning expectations. What's your expectations of me? What are my expectations of you? And let's make sure we get it all out on the table now. So when we start delivering, all we need to do is deliver upon those expectations we've spoke about. So in that manner there, one of the expectations that we say to an owner is, I'm basically a fact collector. Now that's really unsexy, but my job on your behalf is to go and collect facts from the market and then provide them back to you. One thing I won't provide to you, Carter, is opinions. Opinions will not help you. In fact, they'll mislead you, positively and negatively. So I will not deal in opinions. I'll only deal in facts. I don't care what someone thinks your property is worth. What I care is what they'll pay for your property. That's the relevant part. So there's 3 questions that we train a lot to ask, which is what price, any price, and then a target price as the last one to give us some price-based feedback. But a lot of this is dependent upon how comfortable with the dialogue you are and then how seamless it can come off or come out of your mouth. We say, again, this comes back to the practice piece we spoke about, is that if you practice the dialogue, it'll come off seamlessly and it'll feel authentic. If you don't practice it, it'll feel unauthentic and you'll be struggling with it because you're like, those words don't fit in my mouth and it just comes off a bit awkward and they said this and I didn't know what to say. This is where practice is really important. So the first thing to do is always lean in any conversation with a non-confrontational question. That non-confrontational question is, what price do you think it's going to sell for? Not what price would you pay? Then we either get a price or we get no price. If we get a price, we ask, would you pay that? If we don't get a price, we come down and ask, is there any price where it would engage you. Again, we get a price. Would you pay that? We get no price. We come down to the last question, which is a target question of a price that's at the lower end of the scale to see if we can get them into engage. But the key thing here is that I'm going to tell my sellers at listing table what I'm going to say. Not going to spring it upon them halfway through where they're like, why are you asking the buyer that question that? We're not going to sell for that. I explained to them to start how I do it. And I say the reason I'm going to ask at a lower level is there's two battles we fight. Battle one, getting a buyer to engage. Battle two, getting the price right. Let's fight it one battle at a time. Our first job is to engage them. Our second job is to get the price right. So all I want to do in the first instance is engage them, and then off we can go from there.
And just to crystallize that so it's really clear in anyone's mind who's listening, maybe if we did like a quick role play on that sort of exact thing, let's just say it's for a house that sellers want 2.5 million for it.
Seller's price, Loch Ness monster, Carter. Those words are getting him out.
Well, our anchor sale is at 1.8 and the top anchor sale is at 3.1. So
perfect. Okay. So I'd ring you and I'd say, Carter, thanks so much for coming through the property there last week. What were your thoughts?
Mate, probably doesn't suit us, to be honest, Justin.
Okay. What price do you think it's going to sell for?
Mate, I'm probably not the expert, but I don't know, low twos.
Would you pay that for it?
No.
Is there any price at all, based upon limitations I think that you see in it, is there any price at all that you would be a buyer?
Mate, house doesn't suit us, so no.
So even if it was at the low end of the anchor sales we gave, which is that 1.8 sort of figure, still would not interest for you there by the sounds of it?
Probably not, mate. No.
Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you. There we go. Now I just got out of you what I needed, which is I can go back to my feedback to my owners and say when push, Carter wouldn't commit at 1.8.
And then this is the perfect context for these vendor reports, right?
Honest and direct. That's the pillars behind feedback, honesty and directness.
Which is exactly what that was.
Yeah. And that conversation was 15 seconds and I still got the value out of that I needed.
And I gave you next to nothing and you still managed to.
And most buyers will. Yeah, most buyers, if they hate it, they don't want to spend time on the phone to you. If they love it, they don't want to give away, they love it. So most buyers are going to give you nothing. So you need to be aware of that and work around that, not be like, oh, that buyer's not telling me anything. Well, of course they're not. So how's your dialogue get around that and navigate against that?
The first time I saw your vendor reports, I was completely shocked because I was sort of part of the novel crew, you could say. So basically, it's your vendor reports are extremely brief. They're to the point. They're direct, as you just talked about, very honest and direct. And it's just either the offers or would not commit at price. So just then, I would not commit at 1.8. So that's what you're writing next to my name in the vendor report. And that's it. Carter came through and said they would not commit at 1.8 million. That is the feedback.
Everything else doesn't matter. The fact that you wouldn't commit at 1.8 because the backyard pool is only 6x8 and you want 7x8 is irrelevant, because it's not the pool that's the blockage, it's the price. And that's what we need to focus on is how do I drill down and find that price? What they feel about things doesn't matter, because if we put that in the report, if I say, Carter wanted a 7x8 pool, the sellers will say, well, 6x8's plenty enough. Therefore, Carter's not the buyer. Therefore, let's not read his information. And then you just lost that person with the ability to bring your seller closer to the market. So we just don't create exit points. Why people justify it is not relevant. What people will pay or won't pay is relevant.
And sorry, if there's someone listening to this that does hot, warm, cold in their vendor reports.
Do not do it.
For that exact reason, right?
Well, you are automatically telling people that the hot people are better than everyone else, so don't read the other people. So instead of having 20 bits of information to get your seller to shift down or up, as it may be, you're going to rely on 2 bits of information because you told your sellers that everyone else was a waste of time. And they were a waste of time because you're not using them in the right manner that you need to. One of the things we talk about this a lot in training is one of the challenges that we have is that you have to build enough context so that your sellers recognize when the best buyer comes along. And they only build context with understanding where everyone else is at. If we only give feedback from the high people at the top of the tree, they'll never actually acknowledge they are high people.
And this even goes for neighbors as well, because at the end of the day, and neighbors aside, even if it's a buyer and the home isn't suitable, they still took time out of their day to go to the house. They are part of the market. Yep.
And neighbors buy property too, but I think if we just need to use the vernacular around or stop talking about buyers. We say buyer, but a buyer's a past tense, not a pretense. A buyer only becomes a buyer after they buy something. So there's only one of those, and that'll happen after. It won't happen during or before. Everyone else is an information source. Every person that walks through the front door, whether they be a neighbour, hot buyer, cold buyer, warm buyer, tepid buyer, homeless person that needs some shelter because it's belting down with rain, they can all give you information.
and on vendor reports to sort of get around that issue, because you're going to have feedback that needs to get back to the owner about the general likes and dislikes. And you just have two categories for that: general likes, general dislikes, but it's not associated with anyone.
No.
And
here's what the buyers have generally made comment on that they really like. Here's the things the buyers have had a problem with. Because when it's not assigned to an individual person, they can't attack that person. But it's just the overall feeling. You know, they have, and I think around this too, we've got to be careful in, if a seller lives on a train line, there's no point telling them the buyers don't like train noise, because they'll be like, well, they're idiots, because all they need to do is look on Google Maps and they're going to see a ginormous train line behind it. And also the train line's not the blockage, it's the price that people have to pay to live on a train line that's the blockage. So, you know, things we say that it should be rectifiable and recurring. So more than one person should say it, and the seller should be able to fix it to appear in our reports. Otherwise, you're just going to annoy them. Yep. Oh, the buyers hate it on a main road. Well, that must have been a huge surprise when they were driving down a main road and then they got here and then it was on the main road. Like, it just creates resentment, and sometimes it can disrupt the relationship.
And the other sort of meaningless thing is sort of, if you have a statistic, put an average next to it you talk about, because it creates context for the health of their campaign, basically. Yeah,
it's no good saying that we had 2,500 interviews. They don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent. Put the average of what you would generally experience for a property similar to this. So then it can show that, hey, it's going well or it's not going well. If it's not going well, let's try and fix it. If it's going well, then that's not the reason that, you know, we're not getting to your price. So yeah, context is always important.
Now, the sort of third most important part of running an auction campaign we've talked about inquiry, sort of procuring written offers, and then sort of the week of the auction, having these critical conversations with your buyers. And you've got a whole sort of contact sequence the week of, which we probably won't get into, but the sort of crown jewel of that is this sort of buyer strategy meeting, which you talk about. And what kind of blew my mind about this, to be honest, is that you perfectly align their incentives and appeal to their self-interest to bid first, to get on top, to stay on top. You paint this beautiful vision of what happens if the auction were to get paused and they were the highest bidder, all the comfort and luxuries they'd be afforded. And you paint this nightmare scenario of what might happen if they're not that highest bidder, if the auction did get paused, and if you replicate that amongst all your registered bidders, you are actually going to have like this volcano effect where they all genuinely do want to be on top if you manage to get that messaging across. So again, what's the masterclass on doing this here, and what does that conversation look like?
The short answer is it's just, again, direct conversations with potential bidders. One of the things that gives me no end of frustration is when we're at an auction, I hear someone say, oh, just register, you don't have to bid. That's encouraging bad behavior. You've got to say to them, as soon as they register, great, what's your strategy? Oh, we're going to wait. Well, here's why waiting doesn't work. And then talk them through that strategy from that point in time. But we just, one of the things I'll never understand ever, it doesn't matter how many auctions I call on our business calls, I'll never understand it, is people that come along, they've been to a property twice, they turn up on the day, they get there early, they give up their Saturday, their Friday, their Sunday, they get away from work, they've got babysitting for the kids, whatever it might be, they come in early, they hand their licenses to a stranger, they spend time filling out a form, they then get a paddle goes in their back pocket, they watch an auction, they don't act, they hand the paddle back and they walk out of the house. It makes no sense to me, like no sense to me. If you want to buy at auction, there's no shock, you have to bid. So if you don't have a strategy around bidding, you're not going to buy it. You're not going to buy it. So I think it's just having that conversation, saying, okay, when the auction starts, what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to wait. Okay, here's why you don't wait. I'm sure you're going to quote it, but one of my favorite stats is 68% of times the opening bidder buys the property. By one action at an auction, one simple action, you can put yourself in the majority chance to buy it rather than the minority. Like one simple action. And confidence is key. You know, even if you're not confident, which most buyers aren't, act like you are. You know, because that confidence, we talk about wiggling our toes, you know, that confidence could just intimidate someone out of bidding. And if you lose someone else out of bidding, you might buy a home that they were sitting on the fence maybe going to buy, or you might buy it cheaper, which is what you want. But this notion about we're just going to wait until the last minute of the auction and then swoop in and buy it, it happens 1 in maybe 60. So rare. So I'd rather build my strategy around something that's going to be more likely to perform.
But that strategy assumes that it'll just sail past the reserve and there's no pause in the auction.
Yep.
If there's a pause in the auction and you're not the highest bidder, you basically have this conversation. It scared me listening to it. I was like, you talk about, you know, if you're waiting out there and the highest bidder gets taken in a room and it's a 15-minute pause, and inside they have the stamp duty calculator and they're perfectly comfortable making a completely calculated decision, and you sort of decide, okay, it sort of paused at 1.9, I'm going to bid 1.950 when it comes back out, and it comes back out at 2.2, it's announced on the market and you've got 30 seconds as the underbidder, or not the underbidder, but, you know, to make a life-changing decision. That scares me listening to that, you know, but it's true as well. You're not manipulating. You're just simply saying, this is what's going to happen to you, so I would be ahead.
In the scheme of most stressful things are going to happen in your life, top of the tree, I think, is probably someone dying, someone close to you dying. Then it might be some sort of healthcare underneath that. Then it's probably having a kid. And then buying a house is right there. Like, it's really stressful, really stressful. And what people want to do is they want to try and avoid the stress, and they think avoiding the stress is not bidding, but it's not. It just adds to the stress. We talk a lot about the human instincts that are important to acknowledge, that our human instincts come down to three things. When we experience stress, it's fight, flight, or freeze. So if a stressful environment happens and you're part of it, our instinct automatically goes, okay, which one of these options am I going to choose? The problem we have is that if we go back evolution, the start of kind of mankind, man and womankind, is that stressful situations then were very different to what they are now. Stressful situation back then at the start of evolution was something trying to eat you. These days, stressful situations like being stuck in traffic or missing a listing, like, it's funny how it's changed. But what happens is back then is they get into these stressful situations, big predators coming at them. What do? Fight, flight, freeze. Well, I can't fight it. It's bigger than I am. It's got claws. It's got teeth. It's going to destroy me. I can't run away. It's quicker than I am because it's bigger. So it'll chase me down and then it'll destroy me. Okay, my best avenue here is play dead. Brain shuts down, body shuts down, play dead, let's see if it passes me over. That evolution hasn't changed. So we come forward these days, stressful situation happens. Most common context is it's an argument with someone, partner, business partner, someone in the business, you know, customer versus employee, you know, something like that. And you'll see a lot that people will struggle to respond. They'll go red in the neck, which is really kind of key sign, or they'll sweat a lot. And that's the stress basically coming through the body. And our body is telling us, Carter, shut down. Just shut down. Don't do anything. Just shut down. So what happens in an auction context is we get to this point, we think we're cruising along. All of a sudden, auctioneer says, yep, we're selling. And then all of a sudden we go, what? We're selling. And then we go, honey, what do we do? What do we do? And all of a sudden our body's fighting against us. Our body's going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, shut down, shut down. And we see all the time that people get paralyzed. Like, they will not look at their partner. Like, they're both kind of like looking at the ground, and then it sells, and then they're driving home and they say, oh, honey, we should have bought that. That's the one we wanted. What just happened? Oh, we hate auctions. We don't hate auctions. You hate that you put yourself in the position to lose it based upon your own behavior, because buyers hate multiple offers too. So it's not unique that auctions, they just hate stressful environments. So that's the thing we say to buyers is, don't allow your human instinct to kick in. Work on three figures: dream price, fair price, absolute price, and then just work inside those three.
And if you, as an agent, if you have that conversation with the buyer and you're saying, I'm going to be taking the highest bidder sort of aside if proceedings do get paused, how important is it? Because I guess what you might see it as at a lot of auctions is they'll do that with the highest bidder, but they'll also then go back out and talk to all the underbidders. So is that the right thing to do? If you framed it up that I'm going to be bringing the highest bidder inside and you're going to be left out in the cold, you actually have to adhere to that?
There's no official rule. I don't like it. I like that one person has earned the right for all the information to run through them, and everyone else, without being disrespectful, has earned the right to watch from the outside. I've got a toddler, a three and a half year old, and if she does something good, I try and encourage good behavior. If she does something bad, I try to discourage bad behavior. And I think if we go and talk to underbidders when they haven't acted, all we're doing is encouraging bad behavior. We're encouraging them to wait because we're going to still come and talk to you. Well, no, this person's done the right thing. They've engaged. They're the highest bidder. Let's deal exclusively through them.
Having direct conversations, a person's success in life can be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations they're willing to have, is a Tim Ferriss quote, which I really like. And obviously sort of being direct and having uncomfortable conversations is particularly important in the context of an auction. I guess if you were addressing agents listening to this and maybe, I don't know, they struggle with that element, they're a little bit of a vendor pleaser by default, or sometimes you see the opposite really actually, where someone's a bit too heavy-handed and aggressive in how direct they are, and they have a tendency to get people offside. It's that classic sort of square peg round hole real estate agent jamming things together. I guess, what is this Goldilocks zone in the middle of being tactfully direct or softly straight, as John McGrath puts it? How do you do it?
What does he say? Softly
straight.
Softly straight. I like that. One of the things when I spoke at AREC, which by the way, I just thought I'd plug that. I spoke at AREC in case you weren't aware.
We're talking with an AREC speaker, guys.
Yeah. Is one of the themes I spoke about was being comfortable in uncomfortable conversations. as an agent or an auctioneer or a business owner in real estate, your day, your hour, your day, your week, your quarter, your year is going to be littered with uncomfortable conversations. Some mildly uncomfortable, some heavily uncomfortable. You just have to get comfortable in those conversations. But the thing that you got to understand about uncomfortable conversations is they don't have to be confrontational. In fact, they actually most of the time aren't. The best way to be comfortable in an uncomfortable conversation is firstly, radical honesty. Just be honest. Like if you're telling the truth, that removes a lot of stuff out of the conversation. Secondly, if you make a mistake, you've got to take more blame than you are owed. So if you stuff up, you have to take more blame than you're actually owed. So you might be owed a small amount of blame, but you're going to take a large amount. And this is something we try and get in our business all the time, that if we make a mistake, which we do, like everyone, we make mistakes. I make mistakes at auctions where I don't do it to the best of my ability, or we make a booking mistake or something happens, we've got to take more blame than we're owed. So we say, yep, that was on us. I'm really sorry. Here's what we're already doing to rectify it. What else can we do on top of that to rectify it? If you do both of those things, and then when you get into an uncomfortable conversation, firstly, you're present, and secondly, you're calm, most of your uncomfortable conversations won't turn out as bad as you think they're going to. Because it's very, my grandfather always told me that you can't reason with an unreasonable person. But if you're the reasonable person, it's very hard to get mad at someone who's completely reasonable. Carter, I understand what you're saying. I'm really sorry that you had an expectation that I didn't deliver upon. All I can say to you right now is I'm going to do my very best to change what I've done to more satisfy there. Is there anything else now while we're being in this kind of conversation that I can do that can improve into the future? And be willing to take it on board and take it. And that's where, again, separating away from ego is really important. You've got to be ready to hear things that you don't want to hear and not hear them and then put your shield up and go, oh, that's rubbish because Carter doesn't know what he's talking about. You take it and then you go. Funny, I was walking to a car after an auction last Saturday. We sold an auction last Saturday. We had a lot of registered bidders there, and I was walking to the car and one of the neighbours came up and he said, oh, no, that was all right. I just thought you rushed at the end. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't get bad feedback a lot because people won't tell you bad stuff. They'll tell you nice stuff. Generally, after an auction, everyone wants to tell you how good the auction was. Or you do a training session, someone will ask you how the training go. You're like, well, I think good. Everyone said nice stuff. But no one's going to message you and say, I thought you're off your game today. Like, they're going to tell you nice stuff. So in that situation there, do I get in my car and say, well, that guy's a lunatic. He's got no idea what he's talking about. You should go to more auctions, whatever. Or do I say, okay, the interpretation of someone in the crowd who doesn't have any context or understanding around it was that I rushed. What can I do differently next time? Can I trial close slower? Can I use slower language? Can I be more deliberate in checking in with the buyers? Like, there's a number of paths that you have there. So, be ready to take it on board. Now, that's a long answer to a short question, but I think the short answer is comfortable and uncomfortable conversations is a key part of being in real estate. You've got to own that.
And there's nothing worse than an uncomfortable conversation that you haven't done the pre-work on. So again, it all kind of comes back to listening presentation. If you set that expectation that this is going to happen, we're going to have to confront some topics we might not like to, and this is sort of part of your process, well then you're going, remember, we spoke about this, and this is that uncomfortable conversations. These are the realities. So it lessens the blow a bit. But if you don't have that conversation there, then it's looking like you're that real estate agent trying to whack them on the head, basically.
And in my example is, I had to call an agent last week that I know prefers one of my competitors over me. I had to call him for a reason, and had to try and talk about working together longer term. And you just own it and say, look, I know you've got a strong relationship with that auctioneer. I know you really like their style. But in saying that, I'd love to get an opportunity to try and win your trust and win your confidence. I know they're good. I know you're in good hands there, but I'd love you to be in my hands as well. Like, if I went in there and basically said, mate, you should use me because I've done this and I've done that and they're nothing, and like, that's just going to create confrontation. If I own it, acknowledge the situation, but say to them, look, I'm going to be vulnerable here, and how do you help me help you? Like, that's a good spot to come from. And vulnerability, I think, is an underrated asset. You can be vulnerable in most walks of life. That can really take you a long way.
Before we get to the final question here, Real Agent is partially initiative by Shopflow, which is a platform that amplifies agent and agency profile through property video. Now, I remember during some of your training, you've sort of spoken about in the past the engagement benefits of a campaign with video versus without, and they are vast. So I have two questions for you.
Great tie-in, by the way.
Appreciate it.
That's elite tie-in stuff.
Elite, I like that.
Oh, is it episode 5? You're really hitting your straps now, mate. That's good. Yeah.
Episode 6, watch out. So my 2 questions for you. If you were marketing your own home, would it have a video as part of the campaign? And what would your words of advice be to agents listening to this that maybe aren't maximizing the use of video in their campaigns?
First one's absolutely. We're in a consume it now, consumable era. So people like to consume things. All our biggest platforms now on social media are all video based. That's what people want, is they want to be able to visually see things. So absolutely, I'd be investing heavily into video. It's almost your heaviest investment now. I'm not sure about the costing of videos. I'm sure the company that you guys are plugging is very competitive in the market and does great job.
They are absolutely
at a competitive pricing. See that's the good plug as well. But you've got to really invest into that, because it'll be the make or break of a lot of people who inquire. You know, videos can give you a feel that photos can't. So the feel of your video is really critical. So when I watch this video, when someone who wants to buy my home watches this video, what do I want them to feel? Do I want them to feel relaxed? Do I want them to feel amped? Do I want them to feel like it's low maintenance, so you walk in and I can move in straight away from day one and start enjoying it? Do I want to feel the lifestyle benefits of it? We're in this magnificent property here in Norman Park. If I was showcasing Norman Park property like this, the first thing I'd be showcasing is, like on a day like today, which is gloomy as all heck outside, there's still natural light everywhere. It's bright. So showcasing the fact that this will brighten your life. You'll come down every morning and there'll be sunshine streaming in. There's a park across the road. How do we highlight the benefit of living across the road from a park? And get the kids out the front. We walk across, we're 15 steps across the road. They're in a park that the council maintains. How do we get that across? It's very hard to do that on individual still images or text. Video is the way to do it.
So you can sort of paint that lifestyle vision for your ideal buyer group through video, pretty much same as what you're doing with your photos.
Absolutely, yep.
Final question here. There will be agents listening to this, running private treaties, running expressions of interest campaigns. They're not employing the auction process very much right now. What would be your sort of parting sell or words of advice on the auction process? And not even from a perspective of you trying to get more auctions, but from the point of view that you're a genuine believer in the method of the sale.
Firstly, I'll own the conflict of interest that I'm an auctioneer and I get paid on auctions, so I know auction's always there. I said before that vulnerability was an underrated asset in real estate. One of the other things that I believe is an underrated asset is versatility. So whether you choose to do auctions or you choose to do EOIs or you choose to price properties or you do offers over primarily, your responsibility to your owners, and that's a deliberate word because it is a responsibility. We're getting paid a lot of money for what we do. Your responsibility to your owner is that you deeply understand every method of sale and you choose the appropriate one based upon the circumstance, the market, and the owner. So I don't care if you do offers over, but if you don't understand auction and you do offers over, that's a problem. And that's flipped inside as well, that if all you do is auction everything, well, that's actually not the right thing to do. You need to understand how offers over work. So then occasionally, if you have a seller that you need to deliver that upon, you can, or EOI or whatever it might be. So for me, it's being versatile, because if I was up against you and all you do is price properties, let's say all you do is offers over, for example, or even all you do is EOI, you become an absolute sitting duck at a listing table. Because I know what your weak point is and I can attack straight through that. So versatility is important. Your competitors shouldn't know what method of sale you're producing at the listing table. All they should know is that, hey, he or she does everything. That's hard to compete with.
Well said. Justin, thanks for coming on Real Agent.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Mate, that was awesome. Boom.
Thanks, guys.
That was unreal. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Real Agent. Thanks again to Justin for spending his time with us today. If you'd like to get more, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If you'd like to see our clips and real content, head to @realagent.co on Instagram and follow us there. A special thanks and shout out again to our partners for this episode, shopflow.io, sellerleadsforagents.com.au, and thanks again to the Bell Ballimba team and Tony O'Doherty for having us here. See you in the next one.